looking around to maybe get a camera, but I'm not sure which one to get. Anyway, I just thought I'd briefly share this book with you very quickly. Oh, and also this. Sorry, I'm still a bit sniffly. Cafe cocktail. A friend of mine gave it to me in Stratford-upon-Avon. Apparently they have kind of literary sessions. I actually don't know, but I just found it. I was using it as a bookmark. I'm on my little desk at home now. So anyway, if you leave, and I know I've got at least one or two followers from Stratford-upon-Avon or nearby. This isn't sponsored or anything. It was just handed to me by a friend who knows that I do theatre and stuff. So I haven't been there, so I've no idea if it's any good. And if you're overseas, it might not be. Although quite a few people do, of course, come to Stratford-upon-Avon, home of the bard. So I just thought I'd share that and pop it out of the way. And I was walking in London and Upper Street. I went past the Upper Street bookshop, which is also quite a lovely little place. I don't get that side of London very often, but as you can see, I had to go in and buy a few books, and one of them was this. So I thought I'd just briefly share it with you. In that there's quite a famous writer whose name I can't remember has written a book based on George Orwell. And I was at a session with him a while ago, but I saw this in the Upper Street bookshop, and I thought, with this title, I ought to get it. Political language is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable, and to give an appearance of solidarity to pure wind. Isn't that interesting? George Orwell and a series. Great ideas, I think, from Penguin. Sorry, a bit messy. As I say, I tend to work here quite a lot. So this is the book. And I thought I might just share a little bit with you, particularly as we've just had local elections here in the UK. And obviously there's talk of an election in the Americas. In the Americas, listen to me, what century am I from? In the USA. Coming up fairly soon, depending on when the auction is. But I thought I could share this briefly. As you can see, this was the £4.50 bit. Great ideas. They have a series of books. I'm sure Penguin won't mind me showing you this. Sort of a review copy thing, isn't it? George Orwell. 1903 to 1950. I'd forgotten he was so young when he died. Of course, his real name was Arthur Eric Blair, and he got the name Orwell from the River Orwell in Suffolk. Southwold. It was his pen name, obviously, and it has a fascinating story. I'm trying to go into completely now, and you can see this. It's not just why I write. There's a story called The Lion and a Unicorn, The Hanging, Politics in the English Language. That's very interesting as well. I've got another copy of that. I think they were issued as what was known as pamphlets back in those days. So I thought this might be interesting, and especially if you're a writer, and I know already there's one or two of us following on this channel, subscribers, who are writers. And of course, if you've been here before, you'll know what I'm trying to do is get to 1,000 subscribers so that we can get monetized, so then I can start writing ASMR, not role plays, because I know there are a lot of those around, but some dramas and stories that we can share together. And the idea is that maybe anyone else that wants to join in can do so. But that's a while yet. Although when we started this channel, I did a couple of videos and then forgot about it. And when I came back a few months ago, we got 25 subscribers, and now I think we're at 185, which is fantastic. So thank you very much for the subscribing and the liking, which makes a difference. And again, apologies for me getting my hand in the way. I'm just holding my phone. But I quite like this George Orwell, as I say, arguably a man who wanted to turn political writing into an art. And I think he certainly did that. From a very early age, perhaps the age of 5 or 6, I knew that when I grew up, I should be a writer. Between the ages of about 17 and 24, I tried to abandon this idea, but I did so with the consciousness that I was outraging my true nature, and that sooner or later I should have to settle down and write books. Slightly more privileged upbringing than me, but I understand where he's coming from. I digress. I was the middle child of 3, but there was a gap of 5 years on either side, and I barely saw my father before I was 8. For this and other reasons, I was somewhat lonely, and I soon developed disagreeable mannerisms which made me unpopular throughout my school days. I had the lonely child's habit of making up stories and holding conversations with imaginary persons. And I think from the very start my literary ambitions were mixed up with the feeling of being isolated and undervalued. Oh, shame. I knew that I had a facility with words and a power of facing unpleasant facts, and I felt that this created a sort of private world in which I could get my own back for my failure in everyday life. Nevertheless, the volume of serious, i.e. seriously intended writing, which I produced all through my childhood and boyhood, will not amount to half a dozen pages. I wrote my first poem at the age of 4 or 5, my mother taking it down to dictation. I cannot remember anything about it, except that it was about a cliffhanger. A tiger. And the tiger had chair-like teeth. A good enough phrase, but I fancy the poem was a plagiarism of Blake's Tiger, Tiger, the great poem, burning bright in the forest of the night. At 11, when the War of 1914-18 broke out, I wrote a patriotic poem which was printed in the local newspaper, as was another 2 years later, on the death of Kitchener. That would be Lord Kitchener, of course. From time to time, when I was a bit older, I wrote bad and usually unfinished mature poems in the Georgian style. I also, about twice, attempted a short story which was a ghastly failure. That was the total of the would-be serious work that I actually set down on paper during all those years. However, throughout this time, I did, in a sense, engage in literary activities. To begin with, there was the made-to-order stuff which I produced quickly, easily, and without much pleasure to myself. Apart from schoolwork, I wrote vers d'occasion, yes, semi-comic poems, which I could turn out at what now seemed to me an astonishing speed. At 14, I wrote a whole rhyming play, an imitation of Aristophanes, in about a week, and helped to edit school magazines, both printed and in manuscript. These magazines were the most pitiful burlesque stuff that you could imagine, and I took far less trouble with them than I now would with the cheapest journalism. But side by side with all this, for 15 years or more, I was carrying out a literary exercise of a quite different kind. This was the making up of a continuous story about myself, a sort of diary existing only in the mind. I believe this is a common habit of children and adolescents. As a very small child, I used to imagine that I was, say, Robin Hood, and picture myself as the hero of thrilling adventures. But quite soon my story ceased to be narcissistic in a crude way. And became more and more a mere description of what I was doing and the things I saw. For minutes at a time, this kind of thing would be running through my head. He pushed the door open and entered the room. A yellow beam of sunlight filtering through the muslin curtains slanted onto the table, where a matchbox half open lay beside the inkpot. Oops, sorry about that. The phone's tingling for some reason. Hope that's not been disturbed you. Yes. With his right hand in his pocket, he moved across to the window. Down in the street, a tortoiseshell cat was chasing a dead leaf, etc., etc. This habit continued till I was about 25, right through my non-literary years. Although I had to search and did search for the right words, I seemed to be making this descriptive effort almost against my will, under a kind of compulsion from outside. The story must, I suppose, have reflected the styles of the various writers I admired at different ages, but so far as I remember, it always had the same meticulous descriptive quality. When I was about 16, I suddenly discovered the joy of mere words, i.e. the sounds and association of words, the lines from Paradise Lost. So here with difficulty and labour hard moved me, with difficulty and labour he, which do not now seem to me so very wonderful, sent shivers down my backbone, and the spelling he for he was an added pleasure. As for the need to describe things, I knew all about it already, so it is clear what kind of books I wanted to write insofar as I could be said to want to write books at the time. I wanted to write another cliffhanger. Enormous naturalistic novels with unhappy endings, full of detailed description and arresting similes, and also full of purple passages in which words were used partly for the sake of their sound. And in fact, my first complete novel, Burmese Days, which I wrote when I was 30, but projected much earlier, is rather that kind of book. I give all this background information because I do not think one can assess a writer's motives without knowing something of his early development. His subject matter will be determined by the age he lives in. At least, this is true in tumultuous revolutionary ages like our own. But before he even begins to write, he will have acquired an emotional attitude from which he will never completely escape. And in fact, I might leave it there. I'm slightly concerned about reading too much because of copyright. But what a fascinating insight. Let me put this in. We might carry on another time. What a fascinating insight into a man of genius, and who died so young, of course. I'd forgotten it. And thank you to the God of Bookshops that took me into the, what was the bookshop? Yes, Upper Street Bookshop in Islington in London. This is the Penguin sort of series of great ideas books, as you can see. There's a whole kind of range of them there, including, interestingly, Virginia Woolf, A Room of One's Own. I think that was one of the first stream of consciousness books, wasn't it? Anyway, thank you so much for your company. If you're new here, then please do press the subscribe button, follow button. I'm not very good at this, am I? You know, press the button. Oh, and I think if you like it, that would help as well. Even if you don't, just lie a bit. No, I'm joking. And thank you very much for your time and your company. If there's anything you'd like me particularly to look at, then please do let me know in the comments. But I hope you found this bless us all, everyone. Thanks. See you next week.